Representative Caldwell, though, I do want to begin with you. Why did you vote no on this motion to just even consider this ban on semi-automatic weapons and large capacity magazines? Why were you a no?
Well, absolutely. Thank you, Brooke. And honestly, that bill would have banned nearly all guns. So let's be honest about what the proposal was. But the House doesn't pull.
I'm sorry,
bills
what do
out
you
of
mean by
committee.
nearly
We
all
haven't pulled any
guns?
bills out of committee. The way you read the definition, essentially all guns would be banned by that bill. So it's not just talking about high-capacity rifles. But look, what we need to be focused on is solutions to this. You
well,
have
I'm sorry,
a problem
just
in
so we
this
can be
country
precise,
with lone wolf.
Representative, what was the definition there?
I'd have to go back, and you can certainly pull up the bill. It's on the House website. We have an open government. You can see exactly how it's defined, but it would cover more than just high-capacity rifles. But again,
so this is your
the
interpretation.
focus has to be on what's going to really solve this. It's not an interpretation. It's very obvious, and I encourage anybody to pull it up. It's an open government. Florida has a record of sunshine, and you can see what the definition is in the bill that was proposed. But again, we want to get to a real debate on this. We want to have a debate in our committee process. We're committed to do that. We're waiting for the governor to give us his recommendations. He's met with people all day yesterday. I met personally with parkland survivors today, talked with them and listened to what their suggestions are, some of which I think we can work on. But we've got to focus on what the real problem is. You've got a problem with these lone wolf terrorists. That's what these people are. And whether you're motivated by religion or civic unrest or just maniac fame, which is what they really want in this instance, we've got to be focusing on identifying those individuals. We saw a breakdown here between the FBI, between the school district, and law enforcement in the Broward County community. If there's any way that we can help facilitate that, that's what we need to absolutely achieve. And then we have to make sure people are empowered to defend themselves. It's no coincidence that these shootings continue to happen in places we've identified that nobody can defend themselves. Nobody can carry concealed, even though concealed weapon permit holders are the safest people in our society. There's no one to be feared to have those people. You look around, 20 million people in Florida, 2 million people have that permit. When you walk in the mall, 1 out of every 10 people you see is likely concealed carry. And that's not some problem that's metastasizing. It's actually making our streets safer. People are willing to defend themselves. That's what the Second Amendment is about, and certainly what I'm going to continue to focus on.
Okay, I just wanted to fully hear you out, and Senator Rader, to you, listening to a Republican colleague here with all those reasons, how does that sit with you?
Thank you, Brooke. I appreciate this dialogue today and bringing me on. I completely disagree with Representative Caldwell. He's in the State House, I'm in the State Senate. And the Republicans who run the legislature here for 20 years have about a 2/3, about an 80-40 advantage. They can waive any rule at any time. That is their advantage in the rules that they pass every 2 years. So and there was a vote on it to bring up the bill. I have never heard of a bill in our legislature in representing here for 8 years. I've never heard of a bill banning all firearms. That's absurd. It was a banning assault weapons. That's what it is. And I think it was the right time to have that debate. There are hundreds of students from the Parkland area. There's many parents, people all over the country who are paying attention to this, and we wanted an honest debate. I would even think the NRA believes that we should have the debate, and it could have happened yesterday, and it could have been on the floor of the State House. I completely disagree. I've been part of the State House for 6 years. I've seen them waive the rules to allow bills to be heard for committees to meet. They could have done it, they could have had it, they could have had that debate yesterday, and they chose not to.
Representative Caldwell, I mean, you have a solid A rating from the NRA. We have been listening. Just speaking of this measure that you all voted down yesterday, just to consider this ban. I know you say it would have been all weapons. From everything that I've read, it would be these semi-automatic weapons in high-capacity magazines. The students were standing there. A week ago, they lost 17 friends and teachers and coaches, and they were disappointed and visibly emotional. One 16-year-old said it seemed almost heartless how they immediately pushed the button to say no. I mean, why, Representative, did you feel like you did not owe it to these young people to at least discuss this, to at least consider? This wasn't an up-down vote on the ban. It was just to consider a motion on the vote.
Sure. Listen, and what it turned out to be was a political stunt. And I understand and I appreciate these students are grieving. I shared my experiences personally. I've had friends that have been murdered. I've had friends commit suicide. Gun violence is a real thing. But you have to figure out what is the thing that's going to prevent that from happening in the future. And the worst outcome in my mind is that we put forward some proposal, we ban something just at a whim without really going through the time and the process, and it doesn't make any difference. And so next time that you have a school shooting, then what do you say? What do you say to those parents
Representative
and those
Caldwell,
friends of
I don't
kids?
want to talk about the next time. I don't know about when you were young. When I was young, we had fire drills, we had tornado drills. I mean, these young people today have murder drills. The status quo is unacceptable. Why not at least give it a shot and owe it to these young people? Sir, forgive me, just a moment. Give it a shot to at least consider the ban.
We are going to consider proposals. You do that through committee.
But you voted no.
I disagree with Senator Rader. Well, I did, because we don't pull bills out of committee. But again, we're getting off the topic. How is it that
we're
you're
not
going to
getting
address
off
this?
the topic, with all due respect.
By being serious about
I thought this was the whole reason that I was here, to debate this as well. I don't understand. They could have had the debate yesterday. It would have been a long debate. It would have been both sides would have had their comments. We've had these debates before in the State House when I served there for 6 years. They chose not to hear the motion. They voted it down pretty much behind party line, which means to me that this was a top down. This came from leadership. Representative Caldwell is in leadership. They sit around and they make these decisions. You know, the NRA, I think every Republican member, I believe, has an A rating with the NRA in the Florida House and the Florida Senate, and every Democrat has an F rating. There's very few who don't have an A or an F. And at the end of the day, they are beholden to this group and this special interest. They could have heard that bill. They decided not to. This isn't the first time it's happened, Brooke. This is many a times. The frustration from the minority party is frequent in our state capitol, and that's why in November we have something that's very powerful. It's your vote, and all these kids around the state of Florida, all these parents who aren't being heard, hopefully they will be heard when it comes to the ballot box in November.
Brooke, listen,
Representative Caldwell, hang on a second. It's my turn. Hang on a second, sir.
Okay.
Let me also add this: the bill's sponsor, Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith from Orlando, he took to social media after this whole thing went down and it was voted ultimately no, and wrote this: 17 people in Parkland were just murdered with an AR-15, plus the Florida House just passed Raspano's House Resolution 157 declaring porn as a public health risk. No, gun violence is a public health crisis, plus Spano blocked HB 219, banning assault weapons in his committee for 2 years. Representative Caldwell, why is pornography a bigger health risk than semi-automatic weapons in the hands of a deranged individual?
Listen, we have got to focus on what's going to really make a difference, and having a
Representative
blanket ban,
Caldwell,
and you can say that it was
why
an assault
is
weapons
pornography?
Ban. People can read.
Why is pornography a bigger health risk than a semi-automatic weapon in the hands of a deranged individual? Answer my question, please, sir.
Listen, I believe we shouldn't have weapons in the hands of deranged individuals. And again,
why is that worthy of a debate?
That's going to solve that.
Why is pornography worthy of a debate and not semi-automatic weapons? Just answer me that.
Trying to pull a bill out of committee is a political stunt. We don't do that. We've never done that.
Stop going back to your talking points, sir.
On any issue. And so we can have that debate. We can have the debate in the committee. As I said, the governor's going to have his proposals. The House is going to release our proposals. We're trying to work in a bipartisan manner in order to have a set of proposals that will actually do something, that will actually protect citizens. No, I'm no more going to take away citizens' Second Amendment rights than I'm going to stand and try to censor the people that came up here today and exercise their First Amendment rights.
I don't think these people are asking for their guns to be taken away. I don't think these people are asking for their guns to be taken away. They're asking for you to consider, sir, they are asking for you to consider a consideration of a ban of a weapon used in war, instead of having it in the hands of a deranged individual, which we have witnessed in so many shootings in this country. Why won't you have that conversation?
I have that conversation with the Parkland students today. We're going to have that conversation in committee through the process that we use for every bill that we ever pass through the House and off of the floor. We're not going to circumvent that process for any issue. The point of it is to be able to hear everybody's voices, make sure that we do the right thing, something that's going to be effective, not just pull a political stunt. And look, this is a real issue and a real tragedy for these kids. As I said, I met with them, I shared with them the tragedies that have happened in my own life. I get it, I understand it. I don't want to make them think we've done something that doesn't make any difference. These are lone wolf terrorists. These are people that we need to be able to identify. We had failures in law enforcement. That doesn't address the failures in law enforcement. We don't have an ability for people to defend themselves in our schools. Our schools are targeted because they are gun-free zones, because no one on the campus is able to defend themselves. It's why you don't have this violence happen in other places, and why it exclusively seems to happen in places where people can't defend themselves.
Okay. Senator Rader, not trying to ignore you. I just wanted to have a conversation with the representative there.
I know
Go
it.
ahead.
You know what? Representative Caldwell has to defend why they didn't want to hear a motion to bring in one of the worst tragedies in Florida history. And might I add, the reason that after the Orlando Pulse shooting that killed 49 people in Orlando and after the Fort Lauderdale airport shooting, the reason that this legislature right here behind me, why we didn't do anything then and we're talking about it now, is because this happened during our session. See, the thoughts and prayers thing it lasted for a short period of time, and people forget about it, and it becomes old news and becomes stale. We're right now in session. The legislature has to act. The governor has to act, and the state house could have acted, could have done something yesterday very easily. They could have had the debate. This is not a new debate. This is something that's been around for many years, and everyone has probably a strong opinion about it. They did not want it to happen,
now,
period.
Senator,
if the presiding officer wanted to hear this debate, he could waive the rules and could have done it and had that debate yesterday.
Senator, let's put this on you, too. To the representative's point, you met with some of these Parkland students. What are their specific demands, and where can they realistically meet eye to eye with you?
Okay, Brooke, thank you for the question. First of all, I found out about this tragedy literally a week ago this moment. It happened at about 2:15, 2:30 in my committee. I immediately flew home on a 5:30 flight to get into Miami. I took an Uber up to Parkland where I had a press conference, and then I went to the hotel where the families that didn't know the outcome of their loved one, what had happened. And I remember those screams in the middle of the night. And I mean like after midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., the screams from the parents and the family members finding out that their loved one had been murdered in this terrible tragedy. And I was there all day on Thursday, and it's funny, I have 4 children. I have 2 kids right now in high school. The next day, one of my kids was in a lockdown at their high school because they thought they heard something. So this is very real. Parkland is the sister city right next to where I live in Boca Raton and Delray Beach. We know people, we break bread with people. And when you say, what are we going to do? The number one thing is we have to have sensible gun laws. I mean, everyone agrees. I don't understand why anyone would want an AR-15. The reasons I've heard was for collectible reasons. I don't understand. You don't go hunting with them. You don't shoot with them, I don't believe. You don't defend your house with them. I'm not so sure why we have AR-15s and why we can't have just a ban on this weapon that, for the most part, kills so many people in a short period of time. But you know what? Also, I know there's conversations right now in the legislature with the governor's office about other things as well. Mental health funding, obviously, we need an enormous amount more. The majority party has cut mental health for so many years now, it's hard to count. Even in opioid funding, where it's woefully underfunded. So mental health funding, hardening the schools, making sure that we have the resources necessary. You know, we have a Baker Act to make sure that we can hold people for 72 hours to question them. If this were the day before, if this were February 13th, there is no way we could hold this young man, Nicholas Cruz, on anything because he was a 19-year-old who had a number of guns. He hadn't done anything at that time, and we need to have something in force. It's ridiculous that we have 19-year-olds and 21-year-olds and 25-year-olds with these type of weapons. And in Las Vegas, I believe the man was 49 years old.
Okay, Senator Rader and Representative Caldwell, I truly respect both of you for standing there side by side and having a healthy conversation and dialogue with me today. I really thank you both. And also, just to be clear, affected guns in that bill, here's the precise language, must fall into the following categories: fully automatic, semi-automatic, or burst fire, and goes into a list of a bunch of semi-automatic guns by brand name. So we just wanted to clear that up. That is what they were voting on.